Happy Monday and welcome to your Mental Health Mini. This week's guest is Dr. Ayelet Ruscio. She's one of my Penn professors. I worked in her lab for 3 semesters. We are talking about depression.
The basic principle of stress generation was introduced by Connie Hammett. And what she discovered in her research is that many individuals who are depressed seemed to be engaging in behaviors that almost got in their own way, that were making things more difficult for them. So these were events that, rather than sort of completely random acts, like, let's say, there's a hurricane, for example. That's something that I have no control over. I did nothing for this hurricane to happen. I'm unfortunately sort of stuck in the wrong place at the wrong time. That would be an independent stress, something's independent from me. But she found that many individuals with depression were experiencing what she called dependent stress. So dependent stress, an example would be like frequent arguments with a boyfriend or girlfriend. This is something that I contribute to in some way, or potentially could contribute to. I might have a very quarrelsome boyfriend or girlfriend, but I also may be a person who is sort of repeatedly doing things that's causing arguments to happen or contributing in some way to the stress. At first, at least, this was a controversial idea because we don't want to blame the victim. We don't want to say, people who are depressed are doing bad things for themselves. On the other hand, I think it's really important to recognize when we are doing things that are making things harder for us so that we can take steps to try to improve the situation. So the basic idea behind stress generation is that to some extent, all of us contribute or can contribute to the stress we experience. And the opposite side or flip side of that is that we all have the opportunity to reduce our stress levels by taking a hard look at what are we potentially doing that may be increasing stress for us. So I'll give you maybe a minor example. If I'm a person who's chronically late, I'm going to be generating some stress for myself, right? I'm going to, let's say, pay a bill late. And as a result, I'm going to have a fine that I'm going to have to pay. Or let's say I'm going to arrive late to a meeting. And as a result, I'm going to be taken less seriously by the people I'm supposed to be meeting with, or I'll miss some important information. So maybe for students, maybe because I'm oversleeping all the time, I'm missing class or late for class. And then I miss information I need to know in order to do well in exams. If I recognize that I am contributing to the stress that I'm experiencing by not managing my time well, then by improving my time management skills, I can actually reduce stress in my life. That's a non-interpersonal example, but an important thing to note is that Connie Hammond observed that most of the dependent stressors that she observed, especially in the women in her sample, were interpersonal in nature. So the women were engaging in behaviors that were increasing the likelihood of others in their life sort of arguing with them, leaving them, where relationships were more unstable or were ending or just were more stressful. So thinking very hard about what are the ways in which I may be contributing to difficult relationships. And that includes selecting people to have relationships with who may not treat us the way we deserve to be treated. What could be done about it? So cognitively, what we often see is people tending to respond in ways that heighten the stress by doing things like blaming the stressor on themselves and on stable things that can't be changed, as opposed to looking for outside reasons why the stressor might have happened, or recognizing that stressors come and go, that they can be temporary rather than a stable feature of me. So if I believe that when I encounter stressors, it's because something is inherently bad about me, it's unavoidable, and it's always going to be around, I'm going to be much more likely to stay depressed than if I recognize that stressors can be things that are temporary, that are outside of me, and that can be controlled. Emotionally, we often see high levels of sadness and distress, but also low levels of positive emotion. What seems to happen is that people are feeling sort of very sad, very hopeless, but in addition, they can feel just a really difficult time feeling pleasure and joy and connection to other people that really contributes to the difficulties of this disorder. And then interpersonally, oftentimes people withdraw from others. They isolate themselves rather than reaching out and connecting with other people. And that can make it very difficult for the depression to stop. So an important first step is to recognize that when stressors occur, all of us are going to react. What we have some control over is how are we going to respond? And so if we know that we're a person who, when we experience a stressor, can react really strongly, then thinking about, okay, what can I do now to deal productively with this? What about the situation is sort of out of my control? And it's like, I need to let go of that And what part of this can I do something about? Let me actually make a plan for how I'm going to address this, taking kind of concrete steps and having a plan in place to address the things that can be addressed cognitively, emotionally, interpersonally, rather than kind of withdrawing and isolating myself and thinking about all the ways in which things are going wrong. Can I instead approach? I'm going to reach out to people who I trust and who I love, who I know will help me get through the situation, encourage me to try something different. Can I sort of think about activities that I can engage in that are going to lift my positive emotion and will help me curtail that negative emotional experience?
If you enjoyed this week's Mental Health Mini, you can listen to the full episode. It is episode 109 featuring Dr. Ayelet Ruscio. A full link to the episode is in the show notes. As always, make sure to leave a review, subscribe, share with a friend or family member, and follow at She Persisted podcast. Thanks for listening.